Hey everyone, Sarah here from the Gravity team. Before we jump in, quick heads up. Our full Spam Protection 101 webinar is available on our Learn site, and we cover simple, effective ways to reduce spam in Gravity forms. From Honeypot and reCAPTCHA to more advanced techniques like conditional logic and custom validation. You can find the link in the description below. All right, let's get into it.
Fighting spam with Gravity forms, Sarah, I'll give it to you, as this
Perfect.
is our first line of defense.
Yeah, thanks. We've gotten feedback in the past that people like to hear specifically what they get with Gravity forms out of the box. So we want to touch on some built-in parts of the solution that can help with spam. And the first one that we'll talk about is Honeypot, which is a field you can choose to enable on the form settings. It's hidden, so only the bots are going to see it. It's not something that your end users are going to interact with. And if that gets filled out by a bot, that form gets ignored almost as if nothing happened. And the only proof is that it gets logged in the Gravity forms core log. And yep, in the next slide here, we see what that setting looks like. It's just a radio button if you want to enable that or not. So it's something you could try. It's a really easy first step on all of your forms. And then the nice thing is, like, if you're anything like me and I can be a little controlling on certain things. And if you want to enable that, you can still choose to let that form entry get created and then marked as spam. So in your entries of each of your forms, it just gets set aside into the spam folder. So if you want to enable it and then make sure that it's actually working and filtering out the things you're expecting it to filter out, if you're at all nervous that it's going to accidentally flag something as spam that you wouldn't flag as spam, that's a good first step when you first enable that. So then here you would just check, it's the setting below that where you're just checking whether or not to allow that form entry to be created. And then here you've got Matt's quite populated spam box.
That was a very kind way of saying, what the heck have you been doing with your WordPress site, Matt? So yeah, you can go ahead and delete all that spam.
Yeah, this allows you to take bulk actions at that point, which is nice. Another thing you could do is limit the number of form entries you're going to allow. So if you're running a contest or something like that, you could choose to only allow a certain number of form entries to be created. That could at least be kind of a mitigation step to not letting the inbox get overwhelmed or the form entries get overwhelmed when those form submissions are happening. It's a little bit extreme, but yeah, it could just be a good first step into limiting any overwhelming amount of spam, and more is just a preventative measure.
I would love to hear from support about this. I think this is an undersold solution, because if you have a contact form that will never get 100 contacts in a day, then why not stop the total entries at 100 per day? Because what happens, at least the way that I've witnessed spam attacks, is you just get hundreds and hundreds within an hour, right? It's just that it comes in these waves as these bots scan your site and try to attack, your site and try to see where the entry points are, or just to flood it with spam. So it just ends up being hundreds, if not thousands. So I don't know. This is something I'm going to do on my own contact form, right? Because, so the case might be you hit 100 in a day and maybe that 101 is that customer. But I think what you're going to do is you're going to get notified of all of the spam coming in, and that'll give you the sort of stopgap to come in and be like, let me find out where the spam is coming from. Let me maybe try something else if I haven't put in one of these other add-ons that we'll talk about today. And it at least controls that overwhelming, outcome, which is now I have thousands of spam entries and I have to go and delete that.
Yep, exactly. And before we get too much further, I want to highlight something Chris said from the Gravity team about Honeypot, but also a number of these strategies we're going to talk about. It works well for bots that can't read JavaScript, but it doesn't help with human submitted spam, right? You've got people who their job is to, be reaching out at a high volume to you. So if you have a genuine human user, that's not necessarily going to fall into the bot trap, but at least, using these other strategies, you get to mitigate that and intercept that hopefully a little bit easier. So just like Honeypot, this is on the form settings page for each of your forms when we're limiting those form entries, as Matt just showed. And then one example, I actually saw a couple people in the chat say that they are using this. I know, Matt, you've talked about this as well, where you can create a conditional submit button. So that's kind of like your own little password-like question you can put on your form to choose to only display the submit button if the user has answered a question. If you're mean, you make them do math. Math isn't my favorite, but you could, ask them to write a poem or something that's an input that would not display that submit button until that field has been filled out, or, selecting the correct answer, which I guess would make math a decent approach.
Yeah, it's almost like a password thing too. Like maybe if this is, I just recorded a video that'll be published on our YouTube channel, maybe next week or the week after. And, oftentimes Gravity Forms is used at like homeowners associations. And I'm not saying this is like the best method for like defending against spam, but it could be a thing. But if there's a word that you have a form where it's, I don't know, homeowners association, again, it's 100 people, 250 people that use this form to fill out, I don't know, some kind of payment, or you got to pick up the trash, or like some kind of like utilities thing. And it's only made for a certain set of people. I mean, there could be a question there that only those people know, right? Like, what's the credo for our homeowners association? What's the third word in the poem of our homeowners association? And they only know that, right? So it's just like a little defense thing. It's not the most, intricate. Fighting spam with Gravity Forms add-ons.
Oh, I guess, yeah. Sorry, Matt. Let me just jump in. You might, as you're experimenting with this, you might find that different forms that you have required different combinations of these steps that work better than others, right? Like if you just have a general contact page on your form, maybe that's the one you're putting the most spam mitigation steps around, right? But if you have a form that takes users longer to get to based on whatever workflow they're following to interact with you, that's, you can use many of these, or you can use a few of these, whether it's the built-in solutions or the add-ons that Matt's going to talk about.
So we'll just talk about the CAPTCHA stuff. I think this is the reCAPTCHA stuff by Google. I think this is probably, don't quote me on this, maybe the most popular one I think we use, because I believe V2 is available without installing an add-on out of the box. Creates a checkbox, I'm not a robot, or an image selection with most of this stuff, all of this stuff, except for V2. Or actually, no, with V2, you're going to have to go and create a account at either, in this case, Google and the other services that we show in a moment. And you create this account, largely a free account. You agree to some terms of service. Like maybe you're not going to be selling things. This is not a commercial endeavor, this WordPress site. It's up to you to agree to those terms, of course. And then you grab your site key, API key, whatever the service is calling it, and you connect this up. And I'm going to show, we'll show this once we dive into the WordPress website. But by default, without installing any add-ons, reCAPTCHA V2 is available. You can install the reCAPTCHA add-on to get access to V3, background scoring, no user interaction. At the end of the day, a little bit more intelligent, one might say, for protecting spam from the fine folks at Google. The pros is fairly effective, widely trusted. V3 is quite seamless. And the cons is V2 might annoy users. V3 requires the Google account. And V3 requires the reCAPTCHA add-on. Akismet spam service. If you're using Akismet for spam protection, Gravity Forms will automatically use Akismet on forms. There's not a lot of setup here. We'll poke around and looking at that in a moment. But it just works seamlessly, air quotes. Turn it on or turn it off. There's not a lot of fine tuning or anything like that. It's just once you have your Akismet API key plugged in, not only is Akismet maybe protecting you on the WordPress comment side, which I think a lot of us maybe relate Akismet to. Not only is it protecting you on the comment side, it's going to start to work with your Gravity Forms as well. This runs natively, no additional setup required, except for setting up your Akismet account. Again, you can agree to a free, non-commercial use license, an API key. Cloudflare Turnstile, what it is, it's a privacy-focused alternative to reCAPTCHA. How it works, runs in the background, challenges to verify users without a puzzle. Pros, user-friendly, no cookies, GDPR compliant, requires Cloudflare account. And so I've heard it's less effective in some regions. This is what we were hinting at the top of the episode, or the webinar. Cloudflare provides various services, including IP access rules, denial of service protection, web application firewall, bot management, rate limiting, SSL, and DNS security that can safeguard your site and forms. This is one of those sort of like umbrellas you could put, or another defense mechanism you can put in front of your WordPress website before you're even thinking about protecting your forms from spam. This would be protecting your site from that potential malicious traffic that does send spam, but it's going to be protecting your website at many various ways. One, I would check with your web host, wherever you're hosting, to see if they have an integration. Some of them already have an integration to Cloudflare. Certainly not the Turnstile thing, but it'll set up the Cloudflare defense for you, for lack of a better phrase. Like I have this line here, with IP access rules, you can easily block entire countries. Again, if you're running Cloudflare independently, you have a lot more control over these things. You see spam coming in. If you're very savvy, very tech savvy, you can log into your Cloudflare account and block some of this stuff. And I would also push on to your, this is why it's important to get great WordPress hosting. If you're getting a ton of spam and it just keeps coming, maybe check with this, the web host and say, hey, do you see where this traffic's coming from? Is there anything you can do in your web application firewall? Maybe they're not using Cloudflare, they're using something else. Maybe they can help mitigate that traffic for you. Might be a good thing to check on as well. We have an add-on called Moderation, which I mentioned at the top of the webinar, is in our Elite license plan. Select toxicity attributes to filter, select the kind of content you like to block in your form entries. So this is from the human side, right? This is from staff, the web admin, the folks who are logging into your WordPress site. If you want to block or filter out entries that do have certain attributes, certain content, some certain keywords, and you don't want that to be seen other than from the admin, say you're the web admin for the organization. This was something, I used to work at a web hosting company, and we did a lot with higher ed and Gravity Forms and WordPress, and you have multi-site with hundreds of sites, running Gravity Forms in a multi-site install, and you don't want those forms to be seen. Moderation is a great plugin for that. You set a toxicity threshold, set your own toxicity threshold between 0 and 1, very toxic, to control what entries are marked as toxic. Opt to immediately delete toxic submissions or send them to the toxic entry box right alongside the spam box. So that's another option for you. Not really spam, but in relation to it. This one's very popular, made by the fine folks at GravityKit. Zero spam by GravityKit. Non-intrusive, no configuration needed. Adds a hidden field to block spam without user impact. Optional spam summary email supports. We'll take a look at that when we dive into the back end. This one might be the one that maybe most folks on this call don't know about, perhaps. So I'll show you what that looks like. Another one that will help from Gravity Wiz. Again, not directly for spam, but could help if you wanted to do things like, I have a membership site, I have email sign up form that I use for Gravity Forms. Email Validator by Gravity Wiz will ensure that submitted emails are real addresses, no more fake signups. Send a notification every time a risky email is submitted. Allow or block email domains so they aren't affected by validation results. So this could help, how aggressive you are, depending on what it is that you're using Gravity Forms for. You could say, I don't want any gmail.com addresses, any Hotmail, any Outlook, any Comcast, Xfinity. You could block all of those big free domains. Obviously, depends on what you're doing, but Email Validator. The whole point, we hope, is for you to get started today with a lot of this stuff. A lot of the stuff that we showed you. The Honeypot stuff, pretty easy to enable, maybe 5 minutes or so. Installing reCAPTCHA or Turnstile add-on, or Akismet. Forget to add that there, depending on what service you want to use. I think, for show of hands, I think a lot of people are going to like the Turnstile one, especially if you're already using Cloudflare. and then explore Zero Spam or Gravity Whiz email. And Zero Spam also is one of those quick add-ons, and we'll show that stuff off. So inside of Gravity Forms settings, I think I have them all, right? I have reCAPTCHA, Zero Spam, and Cloudflare Turnstile. So we would go to Forms and then Settings. Let me see if I can zoom in with this hand so we can see that. It's going to be all inside of your settings page. reCAPTCHA. Right now, this is without the add-on activated, and I'll show you what it looks like with the add-on activated. So this is without adding the reCAPTCHA add-on. You would go and set up grab your keys from Google, paste them here, and that's setting up the reCAPTCHA stuff. Same thing for Cloudflare Turnstile, site key, secret key. Create a free Cloudflare account, add your site to it. I'll get to Zero Spam in a second, but let's just take a look at Forms really quick. Edit. And go to Advanced. Did I go by it? No, it's right here. So CAPTCHA field, grab that, drop that in. Again, I don't have it set up here, but you would just create your account, drag that field in, and that'll enable the CAPTCHA stuff. Delete that. Then the turnstile, same thing. Grab that, throw that into your form, and that'll enable the turnstile field in that particular form. This is the spam question concept, where you would have a question here, whether it's, a math question, 345 plus 789. And then on your submit button, you would enable that conditional logic and then show this form button if all match 345, 789 is, enter the correct value. You could also do this on the form settings conditional logic too, where the form is only submitted. You could have it where you could still see the submit button, but none of the stuff would email you or labeled as an entry in the form settings as well. Let's go to form settings one more time, the global settings. And this is the Zero Spam plugin. By default, these are your options: enabled and disabled site-wide. Obviously, you want it enabled site-wide. And then what GravityKit does is you can actually get a spam report frequency sent to you. So, if you're, unsure of like, hey, I don't want to know, like, I want to know if something gets blocked. That way I can go back and check something just in case. You can have it set up through emailing you all this information on a given time frame, twice daily, weekly, monthly, etc., and what information goes out to you here. This is a great time to plug Gravity SMTP. If you're using, if you have a developer license, elite license, you have access to, or a nonprofit license, you have access to Gravity SMTP. Those emails will be sure to deliver to you. Fight the spammers, don't be the spammers, is what Sarah says.
That's right.
and that's what Gravity SMTP does. So Zero Spam, free in the directory. With the official reCAPTCHA add-on activated, now you have access to enable this, the V3 by Google reCAPTCHA, right? So when that add-on is off, core Gravity Forms is going to give you access to V2, enable the add-on, get you access to V3.
Just want to call this out from Chris as well on the reCAPTCHA, that you only are using one on each form. So V2, you need that field. Otherwise, V3, you don't need the field.
So don't stack them all. Could I run V3 and Turnstile to be super protected?
Yep. And then just clarifying was if you should not be running V2 and 3, just not on the same form.
Good questions. Good questions.
And then can you show while you're in here where to enable the Honeypot?
Oh yes, I forgot about that. Yes, thank you, Jody, for asking that. So we go to Forms, and we'll go to Form Settings. Let me just zoom in so everybody can see that. We're in our Forms. We're going to Settings, Form Settings, and then we'll scroll down. I'll zoom in. So this is the anti-spam honeypot. By default, it's off. Switch it on. Do not create the entry or create an entry and mark it as spam. Same goes for the Gravity Forms Zero Spam add-on. You can enable and disable that here. And then this is that enable entry limit stuff we were talking about before. And your options are in this dropdown. So total entries, all time, per day, per week, per month. I mean, I don't know. If you have a low volume contact form, why not make it 100? Right? And you would put in 100. Bye spam. Yeah, you really wouldn't want to put that, but entry limit reads. This is what it would show if once you hit that limit. But again, like I think of this as just like that stopgap, because I know it's just when you get hit with spam, it's just hundreds, if not thousands, and it's just like, God, now I got to go delete all this stuff, mark this, I got to go through it, and at least this would stop it at 100, in my opinion. Akismet, I didn't mention that, right? Akismet, I didn't show Akismet. So this is with Akismet activated. So the Akismet, if you have blog comments enabled on your WordPress site, or you've been using Akismet for a while, you can set it up here in Gravity Forms with the add-on. And this is what it'll look like on a per form basis. You can turn it on, turn it off, and save settings here. Akismet actually has a pretty nice dashboard. Yeah, nice little dashboard by Akismet. You know, it's nice to have everything all in one, right? To kind of see all this stuff.
Thanks for watching. And don't forget, our Spam 101 webinar is available on our Learn site. If you're looking for clear, practical ways to keep your forms spam-free, be sure to check it out. The link's in the description, and we'll see you in the next video.